There's a world outside that never sleeps. But no one told me that it would become a world where I, too, could no longer rest. I lived in a city where even silence had noise. The air buzzed with ambition. The streets were paved not only with concrete, but with hurried footsteps, hurried lunches, hurried conversations. Everywhere I went, I carried noise with me, in my pockets, in my ears, in my mind. Every morning I woke up to a glow, not sunlight, but the blue light of a screen that demanded my attention before I even remembered who I was. I didn't stretch. I didn't breathe. I just scrolled. News, deadlines, expectations, other people's lives flashing faster than my own heartbeat. I used to think that being busy meant being valuable, that if I was always available, I would never be forgotten, that if I filled my time, I would also fill the emptiness I sometimes felt at night. But I was wrong, so deeply wrong. Underneath my performance of "I'm fine" was a quiet ache, a longing for something I couldn't name. Not success, not approval, just stillness, space. Some nights I would sit in the dark long after everyone had gone to sleep. The world was finally quiet, but I wasn't. My thoughts raced louder than traffic. Memories, mistakes, what-ifs. They all took turns keeping me awake. I remember one night in particular. I sat by the window. Rain tapped softly on the glass like it wanted to be let in. And I thought to myself, when was the last time I listened to the rain? Not just heard it, but listened, noticed it, felt it, welcomed it. I couldn't remember. Somewhere along the way, I had stopped noticing the little things that once brought me comfort. The warmth of tea between my palms. The way the sky turns orange before it sleeps. The quiet weight of a cat curled beside my foot. I had traded them all. For alerts. For updates. For a false sense of importance. And yet, there was something in me that hadn't died. Something fragile, something barely alive but still glowing. Like the last ember in a burned-out fire, it was soft, almost silent, but it whispered, "You're not meant to live this way." I didn't answer that voice right away. I was afraid of what I'd find if I stopped, afraid of what I'd feel if I listened. But the whisper kept returning, stronger each time, until one morning something strange happened. I didn't check my phone. I sat at the edge of my bed, and I breathed. It was awkward, unfamiliar, but it was real. And in that moment, I knew I had to go. Go where? I didn't know. But I had to leave behind the noise, even if just for a while, and search for that voice that had waited so patiently for me to come home. So I packed a small bag, told no one exactly where I was going, and I left. I left the sound of my name in the mouths of people who didn't truly know me. I left the buzzing notifications that had become my heartbeat. I left the version of myself that smiled in every meeting but felt empty in every mirror. I drove, past the buildings, past the deadlines, past the endless to-do lists, and as the city Faded in my rearview mirror, so did a part of me, a part that I was finally ready to let go. I didn't know what I would find ahead, but for the first time in a long, long time, I could almost hear it, the voice beneath the noise. Part 2. The Echo in the Silence. I didn't know how long I'd been driving. All I knew was the road kept stretching forward, and the only sounds were the soft hum of the engine and the wind slipping through the cracked window. There were no notifications, no one calling my name, no list of things to do ticking like a second hand in my brain. At first, the silence felt strange, almost suspicious. I had lived so long surrounded by sound that the quiet felt like a missing limb. I thought I'd feel empty without the constant chatter, the rush of updates, the pressure to respond. But I didn't. I just drove. Past golden fields that shimmered in the late afternoon sun. Past winding hills, forgotten gas stations, and sleepy towns. Each mile away from the city was like peeling off another layer of noise I didn't even know I was wearing. And then I reached it. The cabin. It stood quietly beside a small lake, with its wooden frame weathered by time, and the smell of earth and pine thick in the air. No glowing screens, no cell signal, just space and silence. I stepped inside, and it felt like the house had been waiting. Not for anyone, but for someone ready to listen. I sat on a creaky old chair in the middle of the room. No music, no phone, just me and the sound of my own breathing. It was awkward at first, like meeting a stranger I hadn't seen in years. Except the stranger was me. My hands twitched, looking for a screen that wasn't there. My mind bounced, from thought to thought, trying to fill the stillness with familiar noise. But slowly, with each breath, something began to shift. I noticed the way the light fell across the wooden floor. The dust dancing in the air like tiny fireflies, the whisper of wind pushing gently against the window, and then something deeper, something softer than thought, something quieter than words, a hum, a presence, a voice that didn't speak, but still managed to say everything. It wasn't loud. It wasn't demanding, but it felt like it had been there all along, just waiting for the volume of the world to turn down. I didn't cry, but my eyes burned, not with sadness, but with remembering. Remembered who I used to be before I got so busy, before I believed that being needed meant being loved. Before I gave all my time away and called it purpose, and I realized I had never truly asked myself, "Are you okay? What do you need? What are you afraid of?" I had been speaking to everyone except me. So I sat there for a long time. No plans, no goals, just presence. And in that quiet moment, something answered. Not with a sentence, but with truth. You can stop running. You are not weak for resting. Listening is the first step to healing. That night I lit a candle, not for light, but for softness. A reminder that even the smallest flame can warm a room and quiet a soul. I sat beside it in silence, and for the first time in years, I didn't need anything to change. I just needed to feel me. Part 3. Conversations with myself. It's strange, isn't it? How we spend years talking to the world, but forget to speak with the one person who's been there the whole time. Ourselves. The silence in that little cabin didn't feel so heavy anymore. It became a space I could move around in, breathe inside. A space that didn't judge, didn't rush me, didn't ask for anything in return. And in that space, I finally heard it. My own voice. Not the one I used in meetings. Not the voice I polished for small talk. Not the voice that told people I'm fine, even when I wasn't. This voice was quieter, softer, almost like it didn't want to disturb me. But it was honest, and it had been waiting. I started to write in a notebook I found on a dusty shelf. Not for anyone else to read, not to post online, just for me. And the words that came out surprised me. I'm tired. I miss who I used to be. I don't know what I'm chasing anymore. I just want to feel okay again. They weren't poetic. They weren't pretty. But they were real. For the first time in years, I wasn't editing my thoughts to be acceptable. I wasn't performing. I was just speaking to myself. I asked questions I'd never dared to ask. What are you afraid of? When did you stop trusting yourself? Who are you when no one is watching? And the answers didn't come all at once. Some came in waves. Others arrived in whispers days later while I was drinking tea or staring out at the lake. But they came. And each answer was like a thread, slowly stitching me back together. One night I looked at my reflection in the cabin's dusty mirror. I didn't see someone broken. I saw someone trying. Someone brave enough to stop running. Someone willing to sit in the silence and finally say, I'm listening. And you know what's strange? The moment I stopped needing to have it all figured out, I started to feel free. There's something sacred about speaking to yourself. Not judging, not fixing, just listening. I wasn't looking for a solution anymore. I was looking for connection, and slowly, gently, I was finding it in the voice I thought I had lost. Part 4. The Storm of Doubt. Healing doesn't always feel like peace. Sometimes it feels like breaking. Sometimes it feels like standing in the middle of a storm you thought you had already survived. For days, I felt steady, calm, clear. The silence no longer scared me, and my voice, my real voice, was beginning to speak with strength. But then, like the shift of a sudden wind, something changed. I woke up one morning and everything felt heavy. The stillness that had once comforted me now felt too quiet. The walls of the cabin seemed to close in. The notebook that once welcomed my thoughts now stared back blankly, and the doubts came, fast, uninvited, sharp. What are you even doing? Here? Do you really think sitting in a cabin will fix your life? You'll have to go back eventually. You're just running away. They didn't shout, they whispered. That's how doubt works. It speaks in familiar tones, in voices that sound a lot like your own. I tried to ignore it. I made tea. I walked around the lake. I sat with the candlelight again. But the noise inside had returned. And this time, it didn't sound like healing. It sounded like fear. Memories I thought I had buried began to rise. The times I disappointed people. The words I wish I hadn't said. The mistakes I made when I was hurting but didn't know how to ask for help. It felt like everything I had been holding back came to the surface all at once, and I almost packed my things. I almost left. I almost told myself that all of this, the stillness, the writing, the voice I was learning to hear, was nothing more than a pretty idea. But something stopped me, not strength, not confidence, just a question. What if this storm means I'm getting close? Close to what I didn't know, but close to something deeper. Because storms don't come when you're avoiding the truth. They come when you're about to uncover it. So instead of running, I sat in the middle of the storm, in the discomfort, in the ache of not having answers, and I let it wash over me. The tears, the shaking, the doubts, all of it. Not as something to escape, but as something to witness. And the most surprising thing happened. The more I stopped fighting it, the more it softened. The storm didn't end all at once, but eventually it quieted. Not because it was finished, but because I was no longer afraid to feel it. And in that soft quiet after the storm, my voice returned, tired but clearer, fragile but true. And it said, "You stayed." That alone was everything. Part 6. Returning Different. Eventually, I had to go back. Not because the journey was finished, but because healing isn't something you do far away from life forever. It's something you carry back with you. I packed my bag slowly, folded the pages of my notebook, extinguished the candle, and stood at the doorway of the cabin one last time. Everything looked the same. The trees still swayed in the wind. The lake still shimmered. The world didn't pause just because I had changed, and yet everything felt different. Or maybe it was just me. On the drive back to the city, I passed the same roads, the same gas stations, the same empty fields. But this time, there was no rush, no desperate craving to be elsewhere. I didn't turn the radio on. I didn't check my phone. I let the silence ride with me. It had become a companion now, not a threat. Back home, the noise was still there. Emails, conversations, deadlines, distractions. But I had learned something important. I didn't have to let it all in. I found myself creating quiet corners in my day, small pauses to breathe, to listen, not to the world, but to myself. I didn't talk as much as I used to, not because I had nothing to say, but because I was finally choosing what was worth speaking, and more importantly, what was worth hearing. People noticed. They asked, "Did something happen? Are you okay? You seem different." And I was. Not louder, not more impressive, just more present. There's a kind of quiet that lives inside me now. A knowing, a voice that doesn't demand attention, but offers guidance in the softest tone. Sometimes in the middle of a noisy room, I'll pause, close my eyes, take one deep breath, and in that moment, I hear it again. I'm still here. My voice, the one beneath the noise, the one I had lost and found again. Not through effort, not through achievement, but through stillness and through listening. I didn't come back with all the answers, but I came back whole. And maybe that's all we're ever really looking for. Not perfection, not certainty, just a quiet place inside ourselves where we can finally say, "This is me, and I'm enough." Closing reflection. Sometimes, healing doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing less. From closing your eyes, letting the world fall away, and simply asking, "What do I really need right now?" And sometimes, the answer isn't a task or a goal or a plan. Sometimes the answer is to rest, to feel, to listen. We live in a world that values volume, loud voices, fast success, non-stop movement. But somewhere underneath all that, there's a part of you that doesn't want to be louder. It wants to be heard. The voice beneath the noise isn't dramatic. It's not desperate. It's patient. It's steady. It's you, before the world told you who to be. So if you're feeling tired, lost, burned out, empty, know this: you are not broken. You are just buried, and the light you're looking for is already inside you. It's waiting for you to stop, to be still, to come home. Not to a place, but to a presence, your own. So take a breath, take another, and remember, you don't have to do anything to be worthy of peace. You just have to be willing to listen to the voice that's always been there, the one that knows the way, the one beneath the noise. Thank you for listening to this audiobook on the Audiobook Healing channel. Please like and leave a comment to help spread positivity to others.